सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि हर 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 सदा देवा शिव 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 सदा शिवा हे हर 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 महादेवा शिव 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 सदा शिवा महादेवा सदा शिवा सदा शिवा महादेवा सदा शिवा महादेवा नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर नमः पार्वती पतये हर 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 शंकर महादेव हर हर शंकर महादेव हर हर शंकर महादेव राधे कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे 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 श्याम 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 राधे 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 श्याम 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 राधे 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 कृष्ण 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 राधे राधे श्याम 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 राधे 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 श्याम 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 राधे राधे ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति शांति शांति।
Allow your eyes to close. Allow the body to find a position that's comfortable and straight but not rigid. Allow the senses, the perception to pull from the outer world to the inner world. Allow the awareness to merge with the breath as it flows in and flows out. Draw the awareness to the breath, not high in the chest, in the rib cage, the lungs, but rather draw the awareness to the breath, low in the abdomen. Bring the awareness to a place that's about 2 inches below your navel, called the Swadisthana Chakra. Bring the awareness there and take the inhalations from there and exhale back out to that energy center. Thoughts may come, sounds and sensations may come. Don't allow the awareness to hook into them. Just keep drawing it back to the breath. On the next inhalation, allow the breath to be carried upwards. Don't force it or strain, but slowly on the inhalation, carry the breath upwards through the being. So feel it rise through the solar plexus, through the rib cage and lungs, through the throat, and up to the Agya Chakra, the third eye center. And on the exhalation, allow it to drop back down to that center. And if you can't bring the breath the whole way up on one unbroken inhalation, don't worry. Just carry it as high as you can, smoothly, gently. Let it rise as high as it can, and then drop back down. rising higher and higher on each inhalation, and dropping deeper and deeper on the exhalations. As you carry the breath up toward the third eye center, allow that energy center to open. Allow there to be sight, even with your two eyes closed. Let in the sight of the divine. The third eye is the chakra, the energy center of discrimination that enables us to see truth from falsehood. Allow that eye to open so you can see the truth, see the divine, see the content, not just form. Carrying the breath higher and higher on each inhalation, and dropping deeper and deeper into the core of the self on each exhalation. Gently bring the palms of the hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. Cup the palms of the hands over the closed eyes. Gently open the eyes into the palms of the hands and lower the hands. So we'll begin with a question that's come in advance and then open it up to any that anyone here may have. So there's two questions actually that are very similar. So I'm going to read them both out and answer them together. The first one says, my partner is watching pornography on the computer. I have discovered it twice and I'm really upset and heartbroken. He denies it and tells me I'm insane, and I feel so hurt and disrespected. We've been together 23 years, and this man is 65 years old. I'm unsure whether to end the relationship. What do you advise? The second question says, in a marriage of 18 years, I've had a blessed life, except for my husband's alcohol addictions. Are my prayers not enough, or what should I do? So whether we're talking about an addiction to alcohol, or an addiction to pornography, or an addiction to drugs, what we're talking about in both cases is an addiction of one of the parties, in both cases the man, and the question by the wife of, what should I do? Should I leave him? Should we call it off? Are prayers enough? What do you do in a situation like this? And first of all, it's really important to realize that we tend to think of addictions as a character flaw, as though somehow if you just were strong enough, you would overcome it. Man lagao, put your mind to it and you'll overcome it. What we know about the science of addiction, though, is it's not actually quite that easy. Addiction, and especially physical addictions like alcohol and drugs, but even an addiction to something that itself isn't changing the chemistry of your body, that you're not actually taking in a chemical, if it's pornography or if it's gambling or those sorts of addictions where you're not actually taking in chemicals, even though neither pornography nor gambling nor shopping or any of the other things that we find ourselves addicted to is actually putting a foreign chemical in your body, the addiction nonetheless becomes chemical and neurological simply because of the way that the patterns of our brain work with regard to reward. And again, I'm not going to go into all the neurology of that, but there is a pattern, a feedback loop, a very chemical reaction in the brain when we engage in behaviors that we are addicted to, regardless of whether it's drugs or alcohol that are changing me chemically. And the reason that this is important to understand is that it's not as simple as just put your mind to it. And so people in our lives who are addicted, or if we find ourselves struggling with an addiction, it's important to realize this is not a character flaw. This is not just that I'm weak-natured, or that my husband or child is weak-natured. This is actually an entire chemical process that is going on in the brain. Now, just because it's chemical doesn't mean we're stuck with it. It doesn't mean there's no solution. Of course there's a solution. But it has to begin with compassion and understanding for the person who is addicted. So neither the guy who drinks nor the guy who's watching pornography on the computer wakes up in the morning and says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my wife miserable. I'm going to take this woman who has been so kind and caring to me, so nice, so forgiving, so patient, and I am just going to do the one thing that upsets her more than anything in the world, just to upset her. Nobody thinks like that. In fact, if you talk to people who are addicted, what you find is they take pledges to stop even more than we tell them, for God's sake, stop it. Hourly bases, daily bases, they're saying to themselves, okay, enough, done, this is the last time, just one more time or no more times. But then, the chemicals, the habit, the whole system of neurology and psychology, everything comes in and I'm on autopilot, and there I am using drugs or drinking alcohol again. And so the first piece is have compassion for this person and understand it's not a choice that they decided to do to disrespect you or make you miserable. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that just because it's chemical, you should be forced to live with it. That just because you should have compassion for the person doesn't mean that that compassion should extend to saying, well, okay, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you no matter how much you drink or use drugs or how much pornography you watch. Because we also have to have compassion for ourselves and to say, is it really the most conducive environment for me to be in when my partner is abusing alcohol? When people abuse alcohol and drugs, they frequently become violent. They frequently spiral downwards. Someone who's spending all day sitting at the computer watching pornography is obviously not available physically, emotionally, psychologically, in any way to his family. If he's sitting with his family and his mind is just dying to get back on the computer, well, this is not a man who's present with his family. And so you also have to have compassion for yourself and wonder whether this is the best choice for you. But in both cases, they've been married a long time, one 18 years, one 23 years, and you don't want to throw out relationships just because someone is struggling. In both cases, what I would do, and in every case what I would do, is if the partner is committed to getting help, if the partner admits there is a problem and is committed to getting help, stay with them. Give them a chance. Let them get help. Let them go to rehab, let them go to AA or Narcotics Anonymous or Pornography Watchers Anonymous or whatever they call it. Let them join support groups. In some cases, maybe let them go actually into a rehab clinic. I mean, there's all sorts of facilities that exist, doctors who exist for this. Stay with them, have some patience, have some forbearance. But if you find that A, they don't admit that they're doing it, this is dangerous. An addict who doesn't admit that they have a problem is dangerous. Not just physically dangerous, but is dangerous because you can't actually heal until you admit there's a problem. And so as long as they're denying there's a problem, there is no hope for solution or freedom. And so, of course, these are all decisions that we have to make. But being in a relationship with someone who has a destructive addiction, who denies that there is a problem, is a situation where you've got to really ask yourself, how much compassion do I have for myself? How much compassion do I have for our children to be in this environment? So first, try to get them to admit there's a problem. Call in their friends, call in the extended family. I know in India we've got this big thing of like besti hogi. You know, I'm going to be embarrassed. My whole ijjat kharab ho jayegi. Everybody will think badly of me. But you know what? Losing your family is worse than losing your ijjat. And so we have to sometimes be prepared. If I'm not able to see the truth and I'm being disruptive and destructive to my family, कि ठीक है शायद थोड़ा सा बेइज्जती होना चाहिए Taki, I can see the truth, not basically in public, but with my family, with my close friends, so that they can hold that mirror up to me of what the problem is. So have the courage, tell the rest of the family members, or some of them, tell some close friends. Don't think that you're doing him a favor by holding his secret. थोड़ा सा बेइज्जती होने दो. Because in order to get help, he has to admit there's a problem. And if you can't convince him, and he won't admit it, bring in a close, trusted friend or two. Bring in a close, trusted family member too. I'm not saying put it on the evening news. But bring in a couple close people to have an intervention. Try to get him to admit there's a problem. Have patience, have forbearance, have compassion. Hopefully you'll be able in both cases to have him realize there's a problem. Get help and overcome the addiction, because we can. We absolutely can overcome addiction. So I was saying yesterday, just because it's chemical doesn't mean we're stuck with it. Just means we have to work at it. Like if we had diabetes. Well, all right, you got to stop eating all the gulab jamuns. You've got to work at it. I mean, or just die of diabetes. You've got only two choices. Cut down on your sweets, exercise, or suffer and die from diabetes. I'm sorry?
Or cut down your age.
Cut down your? Age, yeah, exactly. You'll die from it, if not tomorrow, in a few years. Quickest way to cut down your age. Absolutely, but that's not the goal. The goal is to live long enough that I actually experience what I'm here for, which is my own awakening, which is the truth of who I am, my connection with consciousness, spirit, soul, love, truth. That's what I'm here for. Gotta live long enough to have that happen. No gulab jamun or rasgulla is worth it. So we make some behavior changes. In the same way, if what's wrong with me is a chemical addiction in my brain, well, I have to make some changes. Like I change my diet if I've got diabetes. That courage is what it takes. And so we have to help our loved ones have that courage. And if they absolutely won't, well, you need to, as I said, have compassion for yourself not to be in that situation. Because you also have a duty and a dharma to yourself in this life of what you're supposed to experience. And it's not to be some drunk person's punching bag. And so to find that balance between patience, forbearance, strength, love, and compassion for the self, to find that balance is the work that we do. So before taking any of the others that have come in advance, I'm happy to open it up to any questions that are here. Yes?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, first of all. I'd like to ask you, what is the difference between destiny and karma, right? And the second instance to this question is, we hear this a lot of times in India, and also abroad. I've heard this in Nordic countries. We are destined. If that is true, then what is the role of karma in our lives?
Great. So let's say that in this moment you have a cow. Okay? A cow has fallen out of the sky and landed in your lap. Okay? You've been given a cow, yes. Now, you can't change it. You can't send it back. You can't say, hey, wait, I prayed for a puppy dog. You've gotten the cow. Now, why did you get the cow? Because of the sum total of all of the fruits of your karma from past lives, from earlier in this life, from the sum total of your stars and your astrology and your horoscope and everything. Bring in your astrology, bring in your actions, bring in every aspect that we think of in destiny. All the punya you've done, all the pujas you've done, bring all of that in. Bring it, the full package gives you a cow. Okay. Cannot change it. Cannot rewind history and say, oh wait, instead of this I wanted to do that because I wanted the puppy dog. Cannot rewind your history. Now a cow gives us milk, which, assuming that the cow is fed organic feed and treated with love, and that milk is going to be very nourishing. We can use that milk. We can make yogurt and ghee and drink it, and we can be nourished and nurtured. Now a cow also gives us manure. That manure is a fantastic organic fertilizer. Put it in your fields, you will have a great harvest. But if you eat the manure and pour the milk in your field, you're going to be sick and your crops are going to die. But that wasn't your karma of today. Your karma of today was just the cow. Your destiny of today, the sum of the fruits of your past karma was the cow. But now the karma, the actions that you do with that cow, create your destiny tomorrow. Are you going to be sick and have a fertile field? Or are you going to be healthy and have a fertile field? You're going to be sick and have a dead field? So this is where today's actions, today's decisions, today's karma is creating your destiny of tomorrow. Whether you are going to be healthy tomorrow and have a good harvest, or be sick tomorrow and have dead crops, is not written in stone before you even get the cow. It's based on what you do when you get that cow. And so this is where our spiritual practice is so important. This is where gurus are so important. Because with a cow, we all know, all right, this is the milk, this is manure, right? I mean, nobody's going to eat the manure. But in life, it's not always quite so obvious. In life, we're given something. We don't necessarily know exactly what it is. It's got this white stuff coming out. It's got this brown stuff coming out. Metaphorically, we have no idea what to do. We want to be healthy. We want our crops to be good. And this thing is just landed in our lap. We have no idea what it is. We have no idea what to do with it. Again, metaphorically. You find yourself at a position in your life. Here you are. You don't know what to do. You've got these skills, these abilities, this family situation, this financial situation. Then this problem arises, or this opportunity arises, or this fork in the road arises. And you don't know where to go. You don't know what to do with it. And this is where the role of the spiritual practice that purifies our buddhi so we can understand, acha isko pina hai, isko khet mein dalna. Yeah, I really don't know. Okay, that brings us at least to the presence of a guru to say, acha, what do I do with this stuff? And that's where our actions end up creating our destiny. And you had a follow-up question to that.
So,
yes.
What I derive from what you're saying is destiny is nothing but circumstances which are derived from your past life.
You create your destiny. You have created your destiny. So destiny is the sum total of your creation. Now, that's going to include all of the past lives that you have neither memory over nor control over. And so that's the stuff that we tend to just kind of call predetermined. Because anyway, you can't go back and change it. You don't even remember it. So we're just going to kind of call that the package of predetermination. But yes, at that moment when it was happening, it was a circumstance. And you, in some other form, in some other time, made a decision based on that circumstance that has given you very long-term karmic fruits. What Puja Swamiji calls your long-term FDR. Right? It's the many lifetimes model of the FDR or the CD. Some of it gives us our dividends immediately. Some of it's in a few years, and some of it's lifetimes down. But that's what has created the cow. That's what has created the field. Right? Lord Krishna tells us, this life is a field. What are you going to do with it? So your predetermination is you get a field. What are you going to do? You're going to plant vegetables and fruit trees and grains, feed yourself, nourish others, be a asset to society? Or are you going to just play soccer in the field and, enjoy yourself for 6-9 months until the field is entirely thrown up? There's no more soil, no more grass. But you had a good time for a little while. Well, that's also in your hands. And this is where we choose our lives' paths. Of what do I do with this field I've been given? Am I going to just play some games on it that give me some pleasure for a little bit of time but renders the field useless? Or am I going to plant seeds that are going to give me a harvest that's an asset not just to me but to society? That's the choices you make today that are determining your destiny tomorrow. So your future is in your hands. And this is where the power of meditation, the power of spiritual practice is so important, because our thoughts are actually what create the future. Based on my thought, I act. Based on my actions, I'm reaping these karmic fruits. This is where we have to take care of our thoughts. What types of thoughts am I having? Where are they leading me? Yes.
Can you tell me in brief the importance of these 5 chakras and alignment of these chakras and how these chakras can be opened? It can be opened through spiritual practice or through the blessing of Guru.
Great. So we actually have 7 chakras in the body. And I'm not going to go into the details of them simply because, in the interest of time, things that you could go and find out on Google are not what feels like the best use of time here. But in terms of how to open them, what do they mean collectively in our life? Because you can literally just go on Google and say, okay, what are the chakras and what is each of them for? The question is, in our lives, well, the chakras are our energy centers. Now, most of us, when we think of energy, we think literally of just that which runs my body. So I feel very, lethargic or lazy. Okay, Cello, it's because I haven't eaten in enough hours. Let me eat something. Let me take some glucose. Then I'll feel better. Or I'm really tired. Let me have a cup of coffee. We tend to think of energy as purely that which runs my body, keeps me awake, lets me do what I want to do. But that's not really. the energy of us. There's an energy that is much deeper. That's the energy of the inner self, the energetic self, our subtle bodies, our bodies of prana. I mean, there's bodies that we have that are not run on chapatis and coffee. The energy that runs those bodies is the energy that we have centers of in the chakras. And interestingly, if you study also different traditions in the world, so if you study, for example, Chinese medicine, they actually speak about a lot of the same centers that we talk about. And so it's very interesting to realize that sages and mystics and seers of many different traditions in the world have actually come up with very, very similar mapping of energetic bodies. The question becomes, why are they closed and how do we open them? And they're closed in general, in broad way, because our lives are contracted, because our lives are repressed, because our lives are constricted and suffocated. And that comes because we identify as the physical body. And since I identify as the physical body, I'm going to try to do whatever I can to make this body feel good, to expand this body, to have more and more of this body, which is actually suffocating the truth of who I am, which is infinite. So the more I put on my body, the more attention and focus I put on physical body, what it's wearing, its houses, its relationships, its careers, its money, all of that is actually suffocating my experience of the truth of who I am, which is already infinite, and is simply looking to go back to its natural state, which is an infinite experience. But every time I say to myself, you're not rich enough, work harder, gotta make more money. Every time I say to myself, who the hell does that guy think he is? I should have been number one. Every time we draw this separation, I'm literally suffocating the truth of who I am, which is one with all. And so we turn off the chakras, literally, through all of our different ways of repression and suppression, of how we feel, of what we speak, of how we see. Every time I see the world through these two eyes, and I forget that I have a third eye, I'm keeping that energy blocked. These two eyes see what? They see form, they see separation, they see this is me, and then there's this empty space, and then there's you, and then there's empty space, and then there's you. And so when these two eyes see that, they feel separate, which means you're an object, and you're an object, and you're an object, and maybe you're an object who I can use to get ahead, or maybe you're an object who's impeding my path and I need to get you out of the way. But either way, you're an object. Well, this eye, the third eye, the power of discrimination, as I said, sees the truth. It sees oneness, it sees divinity. It sees content, not form, essence, not packaging. But all of the attention that I give to these two eyes, to form, black, white, rich, poor, my people, not my people, is shutting off the energy of the third eye that sees truth and divinity and oneness. And so the way to let them, to open them, is simply to stop repressing them. allow ourselves to be open. Allow ourselves to feel the energy of the body, to stop telling ourselves, that's bad, that's wrong. Whether it's the pain of our hearts that want to cry and we say, no, 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 men don't cry. No, 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 be strong. Whether it's sexual energy that we're told, that's dirty, that's bad. Well, energy is not bad or dirty. Energy is just energy. There's no reason to repress anything. The answer is to use our power of discrimination, our power of our spiritual work, our power of Dharma, to make a choice. I'm going to act on it or not act on it. Just because the energy is there doesn't mean I have to act on it. But what we do is we repress everything. As though somehow we were so weak that if we enabled ourselves to feel the energy, we would have no choice but to act. Well, that doesn't give you very much credit, does it? And so the practices that work with the chakras are practices of opening them. But practices of bringing energy upwards. So sexual energy, for example, is energy of ojas. It's energy of the being, that energy of light. That's critical energy for our bodies. And you don't want to repress it, but you also don't want to waste it or use it incorrectly. This is where there's all the practices of bringing the energy up, of harnessing that energy and using it for awakening. But if you've simply repressed it and pushed it down and said, bad, 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 dirty, 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 well, A, you end up with closed chakras. B, you end up with not being able to benefit from the flow of energy in your body. And so that's in general. There's lots of different yogas and techniques and ways of actually working with them. But in general, we stop closing them. Their natural state is open. And so when you say, does the grace of a guru work? Absolutely. The grace of a guru can open everything. Because what happens in the grace of the guru? All of our armor that says I've got to hold myself in check, I have to protect myself, from the world. In the presence of the guru, we just go, and we can melt. So there's no need to repress anything. There's no need to close anything. And we can heal, because also a lot of times, it's not just our minds that close it, but things that have happened in our lives interact and keep chakras closed, keep the energy from flowing. In the Guru's presence, everything heals. I remember when I first met Pujya Swamiji, telling some of my friends back home that he could see everything, that he just looked into my eyes and he knew everything. And my friends were like, everything? And I said, yeah, I think so. I think so. So far it looks like he knows everything. And they said, well, God, isn't that scary and uncanny and embarrassing? I mean, don't you feel, embarrassed in his presence? And I said, actually, it's the most extraordinarily beautiful experience I've ever had, because along with the seeing of everything is the presence of love. And to be in a situation in which, because a lot of us, if you're honest with yourself, a lot of us move through the world maintaining social relationships through some level of secrecy. There's very few people, if anyone at all, that you literally could tell everything to. Not just everything you do, but everything you think. If you've got even one person like that in your life, consider yourself really lucky. Most of us move through even our closest relationships with some level of secrecy. Well, that I should not tell them. And to be in the presence of someone who knows everything and still loves you is to be in the presence of being able to let everything go. Because as long as we're holding anything back, and I'm not saying that you should necessarily walk into your relationships and tell people everything. Lord Krishna said very beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita that tapas of speech is speech that is not only true, but that is kind and beneficial. And that we should only speak that which actually is all three. And a lot of times what we think is not necessarily kind or beneficial. And so according to the Bhagavad Gita, it should not be spoken. But what ends up happening to us in that is there's a part of our mind that feels like, well, you only love me because you don't really know. If you really knew everything I think, you wouldn't love me quite so much. And that creates a level of internal energetic suppression. Now, there's no option. We have to do it in our relationships because we're not married to enlightened people. We're not the parents of enlightened people. We're not the children or the in-laws of enlightened people. And so we have to kind of move through the world managing other people's emotions. But in the presence of the Guru, who already sees and knows everything, and still loves you, and still looks at you with eyes of such love and such acceptance, it's the place in which you can let everything go. And in that, chakras open. Because all of that which you're holding and repressing automatically gets opened. This is where the grace of the Guru is sort of the answer to pretty much everything that ails us. Except the ego. We still have to work with that to enable us to keep taking the grace of the Guru. To keep moving aside so that more and more grace can flow. But pretty much other than the ego, this is my personal experience, other than the ego, the grace of the Guru can pretty much, in one fell swoop, sort of take care of everything. The ego requires us to still get actively involved and work with it, with the grace of the Guru, such that we can get freer and freer and freer of it. But yeah, the chakras, the Guru can open those. Are you here tomorrow? Okay, no problem. So we'll end with this one. Yeah.
My question is, how do we find the purpose of art in life? Like, if I have taken birth here on the earth for giving seva to Mother Ganga, how do we find it? I have taken birth to do this only.
Yes.
To give seva to someone or anything else.
Okay. So first of all, it's important to understand the distinction between our purpose, our role and duty. Those are two actually different things. Due to our karmic package, we come into this world, each of us with different roles and duties. So you are a son. The only son of parents who don't have very much money and aren't in very good health has a very different duty than, say, the daughter of a family with 5 children, where the parents have ample financial resources and are in fantastic health until a very old age. Just the simple way that you're going to execute your duty in your relationship to your parents is going to be completely different. And that's only one duty. We all have God knows how many duties, but in one, that's your duty. For that, we play a role. You play the role of son. You get a job. In your job, you play the role maybe in the beginning of the mail clerk or the sweeper or the guard. Well, you play that role and you play it well because you know que mujhe paisa kamana hai. Whatever the role is, doesn't matter. Play it well. Get a raise, get a promotion. New role, play it well. To fulfill your duty. And you're aware of the fact that this role is to fulfill your duty. But that's not the purpose of your life. The purpose of your life is actually to know who you are. And who you are is divinity. Who you are is soul. Who you are is spirit. Who you are is consciousness. And the way that you know that is the body keeps changing. The roles keep changing. Your role when you were 4 was very different from your role at 14, very different from a role at 40. Roles keep changing. Duties keep changing. But who you are stays the same. We say I throughout our entire life. No matter how many times the body changes. What's that I? So the purpose of life is to know that I. That's an internal awareness. And when I know that, when I know I am one with the divine, well then my purpose becomes, in terms of action, to be the divine on earth. So Lord Krishna tells us, when there is darkness in the world, when adharma, unrighteousness, is being when dharma, righteousness, is being beat by adharma, unrighteousness, when light is being shrouded by darkness, I incarnate in form to restore the light to the darkness, to restore the dharma to the adharma. Well, if every one of us is divine, it means every one of us is, on some level, God on earth to restore light to the darkness, to restore dharma to the adharma. But in order to know that, I have to know who I am first. And so when I have that awareness, then I know, so my purpose is to be a channel. Not, I'm the divine, so I'm going to sit here and you're going to wash my feet and, feed me grapes. But to be a channel for that flow of the divine. To be an instrument of the divine. Here on earth. Where is there darkness that you can bring light? Where is there adharma that you can bring dharma? And so you talked about Mother Ganga. Well, there's 101 different places where what's happening to Mother Ganga is dark right now. Which aspect of it you, with your talent, your time, your ability, your resources can work on, only you know that. And this is where we sit and you figure it out. The purpose is going to come to you. But then you've got to sit down with a pad and paper or on your computer or however, whatever works for you and figure it out. All right, I know I'm supposed to serve Mother Ganga. Here's my skill. How can I use that particular skill? Or maybe I don't have any skills. Maybe I have no skills. And I've got kind of a meaningless job, but I've got to do it to put bread on the table. Well, all right, at least I've got my weekends and evenings. I can volunteer for an organization that's working for Ganga. I can plant trees. Everybody can plant trees, no skills required. Not even much money required. Planting trees is one of the most important things we can do for Ganga, for all of our rivers. A lot of the tributaries of Ganga are fed by trees, not by glaciers. The main stream is fed by the glaciers, but a lot of the tributaries are actually fed by trees in the forest. As we deforest the forest, these tributaries are all drying up. That's where the water is getting less and less. The trees are what help hold the soil in place, so when we have rain, we don't end up with villages falling into Ganga and all of the people dying. One of the reasons that we have such tragedies every year is because we've deforested our mountains. There's no trees to hold the soil in place. So at the bare minimum, plant trees. At the bare minimum, don't throw your trash. Don't let anybody else throw your trash. At the bare minimum, stop buying and wearing leather, for God's sakes. Because these tanneries are the absolute worst polluter of Mother Ganga. At least stop being part of the problem. Everybody can do that. And then you figure out how you can be part of the solution. Yeah. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. And we'll see you tomorrow. And if you have a question that you feel shy to ask, or we didn't have time tonight and you're